Other men find me irresistible. My girlfriend smirked. I canceled 6 cards, 3 bills, and 1 lease. Now she's broke and begs me for help. My girlfriend told me to step my game up. So I erased her entire lifestyle in 72 hours and watched her crumble without me. I was with one ex for 4 years and wanted to marry her. One night out with friends, I noticed her making out with another guy in a car at a red light. 3 days later, I informed her I was going to see my brother. He never specified where he lived, only that he lived in another state. That happened 30 years ago, and she still does not know where I reside. She has been married and divorced thrice since then. She married the man she cheated on me with, and then cheated on him as well. I've been happily married for 22 years. This is a distinct comment. This guy saw his girl cheating 30 years ago, and instead of making a huge deal about it or attempting to work it out, he simply fled. Clean break. There was no drama, begging, or, let's talk about this. Just gone. Look at the findings. She's been married twice and apparently hasn't learned her lesson, as she also cheated on the guy she left for. Meanwhile, he has been happily married for 22 years. 22 years. This is something we frequently discuss. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. This guy didn't need multiple chances or second chances to realize she wasn't bride material. He recognized what he needed to see and made his decision. The fact that she still doesn't know where he lives 30 years later demonstrates a strong dedication to moving forward. This is how you handle betrayal, gentlemen. Clean, decisive, and permanent. If you have any stories like these, please share them in the comments. I'll include them in my forthcoming videos. Now let's begin the story. She responded, I can't help it if other men find me irresistible. Maybe you should step your game up. When I witnessed her offer her phone number to a random guy, I remarked, you're right. The next day her name was removed from everything I paid for. Her belongings were packed, and her tea did not function. She called me 23 times in one day. I'm 34 years old and male, and Brianna, my now ex-girlfriend of 3 years, said I needed to raise my game. So I stepped it up. Alright. She just didn't expect it to happen this way. Saturday night, we went to Copper Mill, a fashionable bar downtown, to celebrate her buddy Chloe's promotion. The place was packed. A typical weekend crowd, with decent music and plentiful beverages. Brianna looked stunning in her red dress, which cost more than most people's rent. She always dressed to impress. Around 10 p.m., I was talking to a guy about sports when I observed Brianna at the bar with another guy. Tall man, expensive outfit, maybe mid-30s, looked like he stepped out of a magazine. There's nothing odd there. Brianna caught attention everywhere we went. Part of dating someone that resembled her. But then I noticed her laughing at something he said, leaning in closer and taking out her phone. She typed something in, passed it to him, and he typed back. They both put their phones away, and she patted his arm again, laughing. I strolled over, as casual as possible. When the guy noticed me approaching, he quickly disappeared. That was a smart move. What was that about? I inquired, maintaining my voice level. Brianna turned around with a smug expression. Oh, that? Some guy wanted my number, so I gave it to him. You gave him your number? I asked. She shrugged as if it was nothing. I can't help it if other men find me irresistible, Albert. Maybe you should step your game up. The way she said it was condescending and entitled, as if I should be grateful she even bothered with me. Chloe and 2 other friends were observing the entire exchange. Some appeared embarrassed, while others tried not to smile. You're right, I replied. I should definitely step my game up. She smiled, supposing she had won something. Good. I'm glad you finally got it. I grabbed my jacket and walked to the door. Brianna called after me, asking where I was going, but I just continued walking. She'd find out quickly enough. Update 1. The next day, Sunday morning, I awoke with a sharp focus. It's time to amp up my game, as Brianna recommended. The first thing I did was assess our living circumstances. My flat, my contract, and my name solely. Brianna had moved in around 18 months ago but kept putting off signing the lease. Said there was too much paperwork. Her loss. But here's the deal. Even though she wasn't on the lease, she had tenant rights after staying there for long enough. We couldn't just kick her out legally. That would require several weeks of sufficient warning, so I got inventive. Begin with the financial support system. Brianna's automobile lease was in her name, but I had been making the payments for the past year because she said money was tight. I called the lease business and informed that I was no longer making payments on her behalf, effective immediately. They stated that they would contact the primary leaser regarding payment arrangements. The phone came next. She was on my family plan, which saved her approximately $60 per month. I called the carrier and said that I needed to remove a line from my account. They indicated it would take effect at the end of the current billing cycle, in 3 days. Car insurance came next. She was listed as a driver on my policy, but her automobile was not protected. She has her own protocol for this. I immediately removed her as an approved driver from my insurance. Next came the credit cards. She had added user cards to 2 of my accounts for emergencies and convenience. Call both banks, withdraw her authorization, and cancel the physical cards. They stated that the cards would stop operating after 24 hours. Gym membership. The same story. She utilized my family membership package. I called and terminated her access immediately. The apartment was difficult because she had tenant rights. I couldn't change the locks or remove her belongings without a proper legal process, but I could begin planning. Went to a storage facility, hired a unit for 6 months, and paid in advance. Then I got down and wrote her a letter informing her that our relationship was finished, that I would no longer be funding any aspect of her lifestyle, and that she had 30 days to make other living arrangements, as required by law. Professional, courteous, and legally acceptable. She left the letter on the kitchen counter, where she would find it when she returned home from wherever she had gone after the bar. Update 2. Brianna arrived home around 7 p.m. on Sunday, still wearing her outfit from the night before and looking slightly hungover. I was sitting in the living room reading. When she walked in, she noticed the note, took it up and read it. Her face changed into roughly 5 different expressions: confusion, fury, disbelief, panic, then back to anger. "Albert, what's this?" she screamed, waving the letter. "It's a 30-day notice to vacate," I explained calmly. "Also, notice that I'm no longer covering any of your expenses. Effective immediately." "You can't be serious." "Dead serious, Brianna. You told me to step my game up last night, so I did some evaluation. Turns out I was subsidizing someone who gives her number to random men and tells me I'm not good enough." "That's not what I meant, and you know it." "That's exactly what you meant, Brianna. You made it clear other men are more interesting than me. So go be irresistible on someone else's dime." She used her credit card to purchase meal delivery an hour later. Declined. I tried the second option. The same result. That's when the first round of frantic calls began. "Albert, my cards aren't working," she stated as I responded. "That's correct, Brianna. You're no longer an authorized user on my accounts." "How am I supposed to eat? How am I supposed to function?" "The same way adults function, Brianna. Use your own money, your own cards, your own resources." She hung up and tried ringing back immediately. I forwarded it to voicemail. Update 3. 2 days later. Monday morning was when reality set in. Brianna's automobile payment was due, and the leasing firm called her immediately to inquire about payment options. She approached me in a hurry. "Albert, they're saying if I don't make the payment by Wednesday, they'll start repossession proceedings." "Sounds like you should make the payment then, Brianna." "With what money? You know I don't have that kind of cash saved up." "That's a budgeting problem, Brianna, not a me problem. You've been paying it for a year. You can't just stop." "Actually I can, Brianna. Watch me." She spent Monday frantically calling people, attempting to borrow money. Chloe apparently provided her enough money to fulfill the car payment, but made it obvious that it was a one-time transaction. Tuesday, her phone service was suspended. She tried to call me from Chloe's phone. "Albert, my phone doesn't work," she stated. "That's because you're no longer on my plan, Brianna. You'll need to get your own service." "How am I supposed to get my own service without money?" "Figure it out, Brianna. You're irresistible, remember? Maybe one of your admirers can help." Wednesday, she took a different strategy. I arrived at my office during lunchtime. Security called and said there was a woman in the lobby seeking to see me. I went downstairs and saw Brianna looking worried and desperate. "Albert, please," she pleaded. "I can't afford all this stuff on my own. You know that." "Then you shouldn't have told me to step my game up, Brianna. This is what stepping my game up looks like." "I'm sorry about Saturday night. I was drunk. I was being stupid." "You were being honest, Brianna. For the first time in our relationship, you told me exactly what you thought of me." "That's not true. You told me other men find you irresistible, and I should step my game up. Mission accomplished." I walked back to my office, leaving her standing in the lobby. Update 4. A week after. Brianna was staying with Chloe at the end of the first week, depleting her savings in order to sustain her lifestyle. The cancellation of her gym membership affected her hard. She had been going there every day, mainly to see and be seen. Chloe called me Thursday night, clearly frustrated. Albert, this is getting ridiculous. Brianna is driving me crazy. She won't look for her own place. Just keep talking about how to fix things with you. There's nothing to fix, Chloe. She told me exactly what she thought of me Saturday night. She made one stupid comment. Albert, you're destroying her entire life over it. I'm not destroying anything, Chloe. I'm just no longer subsidizing it. There's a difference. You're being vindictive. I'm being logical, Chloe. Why would I financially support someone who thinks other men are more irresistible than me? Brianna attempted to enter the apartment building on Friday but was turned away by the front desk. They contacted and stated someone had requested admission, claiming to live there. She's not on the lease, I informed them. She's a guest who's been staying here but she's moving out. Don't let her up without my explicit permission. The weekend passed quietly, but Monday brought a new degree of desperation. Brianna's mother, Diane, contacted me immediately. Albert, she added, this is getting out of hand. Brianna is falling apart. You need to work this out. Diane, with respect. Your daughter told me other men find her irresistible and I should step my game up. I stepped my game up by stepping away. She made a mistake, Albert. Everyone makes mistakes. Some mistakes have bigger consequences than others, Diane. This is one of them. You're being cruel. I'm being consistent, Diane. I don't subsidize people who give their numbers to random men. Update 5. 2 weeks later. Brianna's 30-day notice period was half done, and she had yet to make any significant progress toward finding her own house. She was bouncing between Chloe's couch and a few other friends, but she was overstaying her welcome everywhere. She tried one last desperate ruse. She arrived at the apartment complex with a locksmith, stating she had lost her key and needed to get in. Smart Building Management contacted me initially. Sir, there's a woman here with a locksmith saying she needs access to your apartment. Don't let them in, I instructed. She doesn't live here anymore, and I haven't authorized any locksmith services. The locksmith supposedly told Brianna that he couldn't work without the property owner's permission and left. She called me right away, screaming, Albert, that was my stuff in there. I have a right to it. You have a right to collect your belongings during reasonable hours with advance notice, Brianna. You don't have a right to bring locksmiths to my apartment. I need my things now. Send me a text with a date and time that works for you, Brianna. I'll be present while you collect your belongings, and then you can move on with your irresistible life. She hung up but texted me an hour later, asking if I might come by Wednesday evening. I agreed. Wednesday, she arrived with Chloe and a little moving truck. It took them 3 hours to pack her belongings. I kept an eye out to see that nothing of mine went missing, but otherwise I stayed out of their way. Brianna stood in the empty bedroom, stunned that it was actually occurring. Albert, she spoke quietly. This doesn't have to be the end. We can work through this. You told me to step my game up, Brianna. This is what that looks like. Find someone who thinks you're worth competing for. Chloe drove away with Brianna and all her belongings. I changed the locks that night, just to be safe. 1 month later, this is the final update. It's been a month since I upped my game, and the results have been phenomenal. Not only in my life, but also in Brianna's perception of how the world actually works. She found a studio apartment across town, but she needed her parents to co-sign because her credit wasn't good enough on its own. I heard from Chloe that she's working extra hours to offset all the bills she didn't understand I was covering. Car payments, phone bills, insurance, gym memberships, and streaming services all pile up when you pay for them yourself. It turns out that being appealing does not cover the cost of living. She attempted to contact her a few times through mutual acquaintances, always sending messages about how sorry she was, how she'd learned her lesson, and how she wanted another opportunity. My response was usually the same. She received everything she asked for. The lovely irony is that Saturday night's comment was intended to push me to work harder, compete for her attention, and demonstrate my worth to her. Instead, it inspired me to recognize my worth and cease subsidizing someone who did not value it. Chloe stopped attempting to mediate after understanding Brianna wasn't looking for solutions, but rather someone to solve her problems for her. Even her closest friends grew tired of her incessant moaning about how pricey everything was. Last week I noticed her at the grocery store, using coupons, looking worried, and counting goods in her cart. She noticed me and waved tentatively. I nodded nicely and continued shopping. There was no drama, simply two people who had previously known each other. By the way, the guy from Saturday night did not phone her. Chloe claimed that he was married and was only gathering numbers for enjoyment. Brianna sat by her phone for days awaiting a text that never arrived, while I was busy upping my game by withdrawing financial assistance from someone who believed I wasn't good enough. She wanted me to compete harder, battle for her attention, and show how tempting she was. Instead, she discovered that some men do not compete. They simply walk away, leaving individuals to work out their own lives. The lesson here is simple. When someone encourages you to elevate your game, take them seriously. Stepping up your game may require you to distance yourself from people who do not value what you bring to their lives. Brianna is currently learning to be seductive on her own budget. Meanwhile, I raise my game in ways she never expected, by refusing to fund someone who believed other men were more intriguing than me. Sometimes the best retribution is simply ceasing what you were doing out of goodwill and allowing others to manage their own obligations. My family mocked me for years. Fix your face, not computers, Mom said. I sold my code for $2,800,000 and cut them off when they came begging for rent. My parents belittled my career in tech, then tried to use me as their financial backup when my sister's life fell apart. I, a 27-year-old female, am still absorbing it all. I grew up in one of Ohio's cookie-cutter suburbs, where everyone has a perfectly maintained lawn and there's a Target just 7 minutes away. You know the type. The most interesting thing that happens is when someone paints their front door a controversial color. My father is an insurance agent. Think khakis and dad jokes, but make them mean. And my mother teaches English at the local high school, which was great when I had her as a teacher, but we'll get to that horror show later. Then there's my sister Lily, a 29-year-old girl who looks like she came straight out of a Pantene commercial. I'm talking about naturally blonde hair that has that bouncy quality. Green eyes, the ideal ski slope nose, the complete thing. Meanwhile, I received, well, everything else. Allow me to paint you a picture of little me. Thanks to the humidity in Ohio, my frizzy dark hair looked like I had placed my finger in an electrical socket. Dad's thick brows, plural yet attempting to be singular, make Mom's face rounder. And the kind of body type that prompted my pediatrician to mark the husky box on my school applications. Yes, this was a thing in the early 2000s. Imagine being 8 and discovering that your body type is husky. The jokes began early. Like, really early. My earliest vivid memory of understanding I was the ugly one was during Lily's 7th birthday celebration, when I was 5. Mom had made her first error by dressing us all in matching clothing. She kept trying to fix me while we were taking photos. Honey, suck in your cheeks a little. No, that's worse. Maybe just stand behind your sister. That became her go-to answer for all family photos for the next 2 decades. Simply hide the unattractive youngster. Dad was a different type of cruel. He felt he was funny with his continuous jokes. His favorite was introducing us to his co-workers as my daughter Lily and my linebacker. He would practically pause to chuckle. People laughed, because what else can you do when someone makes fun of their own child? I still hear him saying, "At least we know she'll save us money on prom dresses." The joke is on you, Dad. I still went to prom, alone, wearing a Walmart outfit, but I attended. Mom's style of bullying was more helpful. She began me on diets when I was 9. Not just, hey, maybe eat more vegetables diets, but full-fledged Weight Watchers meetings where I was literally the only child. She'd pack Lily's lunch with typical kid items like sandwiches, chips, and those odd hostess cakes everyone traded for. Mine? Celery sticks with low-fat cheese. Because evidently, childhood obesity was a greater issue than, say, giving your child an eating disorder. However, the worst thing was not even the straight stuff. It was the continual contrast with Lily. Everything was a competition, and I was already losing before it started. Lily would come home with a B+ and be congratulated for her efforts during cheer season. I'd receive an A- and be told, well, if you weren't always in your room on that computer, maybe it could have been an A. Like, make sure it makes sense. Family reunions were their own version of hell. Our extended family picked up on the dynamic right away, partly because my parents made it so clear. Aunt Linda, Mom's sister, once tried to commend my artistic abilities over Thanksgiving when I was 12. Before I could say thank you, Mom stepped in with, yes, she's creative. Lily, tell everyone about your solo in the winter concert. The message was plain. My accomplishments were not simply lesser, they were not even worth addressing. The computer became my getaway. I began to devote an increasing amount of time to learning how to code. Because, at the very least, computers do not care how you appear. They either work or not. No one tells a piece of code to use contouring to make its interface appear slimmer. By middle school, I had a system down. Get up early to avoid breakfast comments. Spend lunch in the computer lab working on projects and avoiding cafeteria drama. Then hide in my room until dinner. Lily would occasionally burst in, usually when she needed help with her arithmetic homework or wanted to practice her cheer routine. Those were our best moments. When our parents were not present, she was practically friendly to me. Almost. The actual kicker? I wasn't even that strange looking. Looking back at earlier images, when I can actually be seen and not carefully covered behind a plant, I was just average. Sure, I was a little fat, but that didn't justify the criticism I received. But when you grow up hearing yourself called ugly every day by people who are meant to love you unconditionally, it lingers with you. I recall this happening in 8th grade. I was invited to a classmate's birthday celebration, one of those makeover parties that were so fashionable in the early 2000s. Mom was quite excited. It felt like someone was finally going to fix me. She even got me some new outfits for it. Then, at the party, the mother giving the makeovers looks at me and says, "Oh honey, you have such pretty eyes. Why do you always hide behind those bangs?" And I simply broke down in tears. Because, in 13 years no one in my family had ever found anything attractive about me. That's what people don't understand about this type of family dynamic. It's more than just being the ugly sister. It is about being regarded as if you are less valuable because of it. Like you have to compensate for the crime of not being conventionally gorgeous by being smarter, nicer, or more successful. And even then, it is never enough. Let's pick up where we left off. High school. Fair warning. This is where things get very twisted up. If you thought middle school was tough, saddle up, buttercup. As I already stated, my mother is an English teacher. Guess who got her for junior year English? This girl. And let me tell you, having your mother as your instructor when she is already dissatisfied with your presence is a unique form of agony. She'd use me as an example in class, but not in a positive way. The following. Now if you structure your essay like my name, you'll never get into a good college. Thank you, Mom. Real professional. But the worst part about having her as a teacher wasn't even the classroom experience. It was how she combined school criticism with her normal appearance-related remarks at home. Honey, maybe if you spent less time slouching in the back row trying to hide, you'd participate more in class discussions. Or, my personal favorite, the other teachers mentioned you're always wearing that same oversized hoodie. No wonder Jason didn't ask you to come home. As a side note, Jason was Lily's friend's brother, and Mom was convinced he would be my only chance at dating. Spoiler alert. He took Lily's friend to homecoming instead. Lily was a senior when I was a sophomore, so I got to watch her act out every teen movie cliché in real time. Homecoming queen? Check. Dating the quarterback, Eric, who subsequently becomes relevant to this story in the most karmic way? Check. Being crowned at every dance while I handled the coat check? Check. Check. I wish I was making this up, but our high school was really stereotypical. Being the ugly sister in high school means that everyone has the right to make fun of you. As if my family's regular reminders weren't enough, I now had helpful classmates pointing it out as well. OMG, are you really Lily's sister? But she's so... And suddenly they just stop. Perhaps not finishing the phrase makes it less offensive. I created this entire strategy for surviving school. Always arrive early for class to secure a seat in the back corner, where people will be less likely to stare at you. At lunch I told teachers I was working on extra credit projects, which were actually simply messing around with HTML and CSS, but they didn't need to know. I started wearing big noise-canceling headphones everywhere, the kind that screamed, "Don't talk to me," and spent every free moment at the library. The computer lab became my safe sanctuary. Mr. Rodriguez, nod to the real MVP, was the tech teacher who saw something in me other than being Lily's odd sister. He was the first to teach me how to code properly, rather than simply playing around with simple HTML. They began teaching me JavaScript after school, claiming that I had a natural logic in my thinking. This was the first time someone had appreciated my thinking rather than my body. But of course, my parents managed to sabotage that too. When it comes time for parent-teacher night, Mr. Rodriguez tries to inform them about my coding projects and how I might have a future in technology. How did Mom respond? "Oh, that's nice. But shouldn't she focus more on subjects that might help her find a husband?" Lily met Eric in AP Biology. You know, the absolute pinnacle of high school hell. Lily graduated. Imagine this. I'm sitting in the bleachers with my parents, watching Lily deliver her graduation speech, because of course, she was valedictorian. She's up there preaching about embracing your individuality and loving yourself. The same girl who previously suggested I wear a paper bag over my head for her Sweet 16 photos because I was destroying the look. After the ceremony, during the family photographs, when I was as usual, cleverly put in the back, I overheard Mom speaking with her friends. She was talking about how proud she was of Lily. Then someone inquired about me. Her exact words are, "Well, at least one of them turned out right. We're still hoping my name might grow into her features." Grow into my features. As if I were a puppy who could one day seem less uncomfortable. I was 16. I'm very convinced my features were done growing. That summer I entirely ignored my family life. I got a job at Computer Shack, a generic computer repair shop in the mall, and worked every shift I could. I started saving money in a hidden account. Pro tip: never give toxic parents access to your bank account. I learned how to build and repair computers, which proved quite valuable later on. The worst part? My parents were overjoyed that I was working retail. They assumed that was me accepting my place in the world or something. My mom genuinely stated, "It's good that you're learning a trade, honey. Not everyone can be as academically gifted as Lily." Meanwhile, I'm in the back room, teaching myself Python and fantasizing about the day I can get the hell out of there. Senior year was simply survival mode. Lily was heading to college, a luxury private school where she could pursue her dream of being a trophy wife. Spoiler alert, the mission has been completed, at least temporarily. So you'd think things would improve. Nope. It was all at this point. Lily's doing so well in college. Or, Lily's joined a sorority. Or, Lily's dating a business major now. I plunged myself into coding. Like full-blown obsessive mode. I did not attend a single school event. I skipped prom, despite mom's panic about it being my last chance to feel like a princess, and spent every free time working or learning to code. Mr. Rodriguez helped me apply for scholarships behind my parents' backs since he knew they wouldn't help with college applications unless it was for one of their preferred schools. Basically, anywhere Lily went. The day I received my full-ride scholarship to state for computer science, I realized I might be able to escape. What is my parents' reaction? "Oh, that's nice, honey. But are you sure you want to go there? Lily says the girls at state don't care about their appearance at all. You already struggle enough with that." They had no idea that their ugly daughter was about to level up spectacularly. So, we've reached the point in the story where things begin to improve, but not before one final dose of familial toxicity. Because of course my high school graduation was just as expected. While other parents cried happy tears and took millions of photos, mine were busy explaining to relatives why I selected State University over Lily's pricey private college. Well, you know how it is, some people just aren't cut out for more competitive environments. Thank you for your vote of confidence, Mom. The graduation celebration went even worse. Mom insisted on posting images from both her daughters' important occasions. Essentially, a memorial to Lily's flawless graduation adjacent to my. Let's just say she chose the worst images of me, including one where I'm in the middle of a sneeze. Who would preserve a photo like that? But here's when it gets good. Remember the secret bank account I mentioned? Working every shift at Computer Shack had paid off. I had collected enough money for a deposit on a small studio apartment near university. The day after graduation, when my parents were at a country club breakfast with Lily, who was home for the summer and couldn't wait to see her pals, I packed my old Honda Civic with everything important. If you've been advised not to take up too much space for the past 18 years, you can fit your entire existence in a Honda Civic. What is the best part? They had no idea I was moving out until my aunt called them that evening and asked why there was a finally escaped post on my Facebook. Mom called in full panic mode. Not because she was worried about me, but because of what others would think. "It looks like we drove you away." Karen isn't her real name, but she could as well be. Perhaps you drove me away. Just a thought. College seemed strange at first. Like, good weird, but still strange. Suddenly, I was in a place where no one recognized me as Lily's ugly sister. Nobody's mother was comparing me to their perfect daughter. I could just be myself. Of course, my relatives had to try to destroy it. Every holiday break was an exercise in psychological warfare. Mom would begin with the subtle digs. "Oh honey, the computer science stress must be getting to you. Your face is breaking out." Substitute: "Are you sure you're eating enough vegetables? Your complexion looks tired." Dad's contribution was to repeatedly inquire if I'd met any nice business majors, because clearly coding was just a phase, and all I needed was a husband to care for me. This is from the man who once told me I had a radio face and a silent movie voice. Lily would stop by during her breaks, always with a backhanded compliment like, "You're so brave for not caring about your appearance anymore," because evidently, wearing jeans and sweatshirts to work instead of dressed like a Stepford wife in training indicates that you've let yourself go. But here's the thing about being away from poisonous people. Their ideas become less important. Every time I got home, their words were less powerful. Maybe it was because I was finally succeeding at something. Perhaps it was because I had pals who genuinely liked me. Perhaps it was because I was beginning to learn that being ugly wasn't the worst thing a person could be. Being harsh clearly ranked higher. By junior year, I had a 4.0 GPA, A paid internship at a local computer business, and was in charge of 3 coding projects for my department. My academic advisor was already discussing graduate school prospects. Things were looking up. Then came the incident, which changed everything. Remember when I said I was good at gaming PC builds? I developed a little side business manufacturing custom gaming setups for other students. Nothing huge, just word of mouth. But one of my clients was this guy who had a huge Twitch channel. He was so pleased with the PC I made for him that he mentioned me in one of his broadcasts. Next thing I know, I'm receiving orders from other streams. I had to create a waiting list because I couldn't keep up with the demand between lessons. I was also making enough money that I no longer needed to work part-time. My parents learned about this through Facebook. Note to self: I really need to alter those privacy settings. How did they react? Pique them. She replied, "Well, I suppose if you can't be pretty, at least you can be useful. Your dad. Maybe you'll meet a nice boy who needs his computer fixed." Okay, remember those gaming PCs I built in college? That was not even the coolest part. The true tale begins with my complete fascination with game physics. Quick backstory. I've always been curious by how things move in games. You know, like how water flows, cloth moves in the wind, and different materials break apart. Most people utilize games to escape reality, which, given my familial background, I completely understand. But I was the crazy kid who paused games to investigate how the physics engine handled various interactions. After graduation, I got an entry-level position at a medium-sized software company. Nothing spectacular, just normal back-end development tasks. When relatives inquired what I was doing with my life, my parents referred to it as my little computer hobby. Meanwhile, Lily was living the trophy wife lifestyle with Eric in their McMansion. Clearly, she was the successful one. But this is where things become interesting. During my off hours, I began working on this personal project. See, mobile games had a major problem with their physics engines. They were either extremely resource-intensive and drained your battery, or they looked completely false. I believed I could find a medium ground. The first 6 months were tough. Living on ramen and energy drinks while coding until 3 a.m. rough. My tiny flat resembled a scene from A Beautiful Mind, with whiteboards everywhere, covered in physics calculations and programming notes. I had an old iPad pinned to my wall that constantly ran physics simulations. My neighbors most likely thought I was losing it. Then came the breakthrough. I discovered a previously unknown method of optimizing physics calculations for mobile computers. Rather than performing entire physics simulations, my engine could identify the most likely outcomes and calculate only those paths. It was as if instead of analyzing every potential way a ball could bounce, it determined the most likely paths and focused on them. The best part, my engine consumed roughly 60% less processing power than the industry standard. Games might include console-quality physics without draining your phone's battery. I shared a demo video on Twitter for fun. You know the tweets that go viral while you're sleeping? Yes, that happened. I awoke to my phone having a physical meltdown from alerts. The demo has gone viral within the game development community. My DMs were filled with coders eager to test it. I even received emails from huge game businesses that I initially believed were spam, because why would they approach me, but they were legitimate. Suddenly, I'm on Zoom calls with actual gaming industry professionals. They're using phrases like revolutionary approach and paradigm shift. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there in my old MIT hoodie, the only piece of college gear I had because it was on sale, attempting to appear professional while my cat attacks my headphone cords. One corporation in particular, let's call it Game Corp, not their real name of course, was quite intrigued. They flew me to the headquarters for a meeting. My first time traveling business class, I spent the entire journey worrying about whether I was seated appropriately. It's peak imposter syndrome. The meeting seemed unreal. Picture this. I'm in this posh conference room, explaining my engine to a group of senior devs, who are all taking notes. These business veterans with over 20 years of experience were jotting down what I was saying. My mind was shouting, "They're going to realize you're a fraud any minute now." However, they didn't. Instead, they started discussing numbers. Big numbers. The type of numbers that made me wish I had paid more attention in my business. Lessons. They wanted to purchase my engine entirely. When they presented me the deal, I nearly passed out. I had to ask them to repeat the number since I believed I was hallucinating. $2.8 million, after taxes, fees, and all that fun. I'd want to say I kept it cool, but I did cry right there in the conference room. Fortunately, they were quite gracious about it. One of the VPs even admitted to me that she cried when she received her first major break. The negotiations took around 3 months. I had to get a lawyer and everything. Shout out to Maria, who explained contracts to me like I was 5 and saved me from getting screwed. Finally, on a dreary Tuesday morning, I signed the documents in my lawyer's office. Do you remember that scene in movies where someone checks their bank account and has to sit down? That is an actual thing. I had to sit on the floor of my apartment when I saw all of those zeros in my account. My cat stared at me as if I were having a stroke. First, I paid off my student loans. All of them. Just one click. That feeling? Better than any medicine could possibly be. The second thing I did was buy a house. Nothing outrageously pricey, just a lovely 3-bedroom in a desirable location. The type of house that says, I'm successful, but I'm not bragging about it. Even got an actual office for work, complete with fancy standing desks and everything. I did not inform my family right away. Thank you, Maria, for recommending that financial advisor, and partially because I wanted to enjoy my achievement without their commentary for a while. But of course, news spreads quickly in the age of social media. Some gaming websites published articles on the engine acquisition. One of my cousins who enjoys gaming discovered my name and shared it on Facebook. That's when all hell broke loose. It all started with the calls. South many calls. First, Mom delivered her normal weekly guilt trip. But now she calls every day, sometimes twice. And the change in her tone? Olympic-level mental gymnastics. The same woman who had told me I had a face only a mother could love, and even then it was difficult, was now gushing about how she had always known I had talent. But the real kicker came when she mentioned planning a large family dinner at the Cheesecake Factory, which she considered to be the fanciest restaurant in existence. She even offered to make the reservations personally, which if you knew my mother was like offering to donate a kidney. This woman once had me pay for my own birthday dinner because you must learn financial responsibility. I sensed something was off. My therapist, Dr. Lisa, has been encouraging me to set boundaries rather than simply ignoring them. So I consented to dinner. A big mistake, huge. Walking into that eatery felt like entering the Twilight Zone. My mother is dressed in her special occasion blazer, which she normally wears to parent-teacher conferences and church. Dad is really wearing a tie, which I had not seen since Lily's wedding. And Lily, oh boy, Lily is there with her husband Eric, and looks like she's auditioning for Real Housewives of the Midwest. First red flag. They're friendly to me. Like, aggressively nice. Mom compliments my hair, which hasn't changed since she labeled it a rat's nest for Christmas. Dad inquires about my computer business, as if he suddenly realizes what I do. Lily continues caressing my arm and calling me sister. She hasn't called me that since we were children. Then the truth comes out. It turns out flawless Lily's life is no longer so flawless. Eric's startup collapsed spectacularly. It turns out that selling blockchain-enabled smoothies was not as lucrative as he had hoped. They are 3 months overdue on their McMansion mortgage. Lily had to sell her Range Rover and, gasp, drive a Honda CR-V like a peasant. But wait, things get better. Remember how Mom and Dad would brag about their fantastic retirement plans? Apparently, they had been putting the majority of their savings in Eric's smoothie plan. Why trust a financial advisor when your golden child's husband has an MBA from Phoenix University? The way they presented all of this was unique. They didn't immediately ask for money. No, they attempted to be subtle, which for them is about as subtle as a rock to the face. Mom begins discussing how family takes care of family, Dad constantly hinting that their mortgage is surprisingly affordable for someone with tech money. However, I preferred Lily's approach. She honestly tried to get me to invest in Eric's next venture. Because the smoothie idea failed, he now has this incredible idea for AI-powered dog shoes. I kid you not. I could not make this up if I tried. When I didn't quickly offer to address all their concerns, the mask began to slip. Mom's voice had an edge to it that made teenage me want to disappear into the floor. Dad began discussing how they had given up everything to raise me. It appears that paying for basic essentials is now considered a sacrifice. Lily actually began crying because her children might have to attend, gasp, public school. Is this the final straw? When the check arrived, they all sat there gazing at me eagerly. Because clearly Ms. Tech Money should pay for supper, right? Even if they had invited me. Even though they spent the entire lunch attempting to persuade me, so I did something unfathomable for me. I looked Mom straight in the eyes and said, "Oh, I thought since you invited us you were treating me, you know, since family takes care of family and all that." The silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Eric literally choked on his water. Dad became a weird shade of purple. Mom's face did that thing where she tried to grin but looked like she was getting dental work done. Lily attempted to preserve it with, "Oh, but sis, you're doing great now. It would mean a lot to us." That's when I dropped the bomb. Do you know what would have been really important to me? I was not labeled ugly every day of my upbringing. For the past 18 years, I have not been viewed as an embarrassment to my family. Not having my own sister pretend she didn't know me at school because I was too awkward to socialize with. Then I stood up, dropped enough cash to cover my half of the tab, down to the cent, thank you, calculator app, and walked away. But not before hearing Lily whisper to Mom. I told you we should have buttered her up more first. The texts began before I even got to my car. Mom. How dare you shame us like that after everything we have done for you? Dad. Your mom is crying. I hope you are happy. Lily. You're being quite selfish right now. My children will suffer because of your attitude. But my best message came from Aunt Emma, with whom I'd been texting updates throughout supper. Proud of you, kiddo. Let them choke on their karma. Want to come over for wine and watch bad movies? This was only the beginning though. They were not done trying. Definitely not. But they were about to find out that the ugly duckling they had been picking on for years. She grew up with one hell of a spine. Final update. So many people have messaged me asking for updates. So here's where things are now. After that disastrous dinner at the Cheesecake Factory, my family went into complete meltdown mode. We are talking about dozens of missed calls, hundreds of texts, and even a few flying monkeys. Shout out to r/raised by narcissists for teaching me that term. Random relatives I haven't spoken to since 2010 have suddenly contacted me about family obligations. The messages followed a very predictable pattern. Week 1. How dare you embarrass us like that? You're quite ungrateful. Week 2. Your selfishness is causing hardship for your sister's children. Week 3. We're willing to forgive you if you apologize and pay us. Week 4. Do you remember when we bought your school supplies in 3rd grade? You owe us. But here's the thing about standing up to bullies. It becomes easier after the first time. Each guilt-tripping message was less powerful than the last. It was like watching their power over me crumble in real time. The final straw came when my mother and Lily showed up uninvited at my residence. Thank God for security cameras. They were bawling on my porch about how they had always loved me and only wanted to help me make better financial decisions with my money. You know, the money I earned when they labeled me a failure. I did not even open the door, just texted them. The only decision I'm making with my money is to keep it away from the folks who have treated me like crap for 27 years. Have a lovely life. Then I blocked them. Phone, email, social media, and LinkedIn. Yes, they tried to contact me there as well. So where are we currently? Lily and Eric had to sell their McMansion and relocate to, gasp, a normal suburban home. Last I heard through the grapevine, Eric is trying to market something called Web3 baby food, since it appears that standard infant food is no longer adequate. Lily needed to find a real job for the first time in her life. She's currently selling essential oils on Facebook. Living the dream. Mom and Dad had to postpone retirement. Dad is still working at the insurance company, and Mom is still teaching English. Though, apparently, she has ceased citing me as an example of what not to do in her classes. Progress, I suppose. Meanwhile, I'm feeling better than ever. It turns out that avoiding toxic households is good for your mental health. Who knew? I've dropped some weight since I stopped stress eating. My skin cleared up due to stress, and I really enjoy what I see in the mirror now. It's funny how it works when you aren't constantly told you're unattractive. I founded my own technology consulting firm, specialized on game development for independent studios. Still doing well financially, but now I'm assisting other developers in achieving their goals as well. And yes, I made certain that my business accounts were fully distinct from my personal funds and unreachable to certain family members. My lawyer made certain of that. What is the best part? I met a game developer named Paul, not his real name, at a convention. He thinks I am lovely, not beautiful for a tech person, or beautiful if you squint. Simply lovely. And the crazy part is, I am starting to believe him. Aunt Emma is still my hero. She's the only family member who knows my new address, and she frequently comes over for wine and awful movie nights. She is proof that family is more than just blood. It's about who genuinely cares about you. Regarding the recordings of my family's best hits of insults, which I stated gathering over the years, I saved them in a secure cloud folder, not because I intend to utilize them, but as a reminder of how far I have come. Sometimes when imposter syndrome hits, and let's be honest, it still does, I listen to them and think, look what you've accomplished despite all of this. Thank you to everyone who has followed this saga, and for anyone else living with toxic family, you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. Sometimes the ugly duckling doesn't simply become a swan, she matures into a successful swan who no longer need affirmation from ducks who have treated her poorly. Edit. Oh my god, this is the final update, I swear. But, as everyone has asked, yes, Paul is aware of Reddit and this article. He's the one who advised I write everything down as a type of therapy. He's sitting next to me right now, telling dad jokes about coding our way to happiness. Edit 2. Stop begging me to invest in your startup. I'm begging you. And no, Lily, I do not want to join your MLM either. Yes, she discovered this post somehow. Hello, sister. Edit 3. For the last time, I will not tell which game engine business purchased my technology. However, if you've played any significant mobile games in the last year, you've undoubtedly used my physics engine. That is all I am legally permitted to say. Last revised just now.